Hey guys, I'm Trevor.
I'm Vincent.
And we are the Anthony and Todd Show. Today we're going to be taking a look at Wajatta's latest debut record, Casual High Technology. I always forget that name because it's really inconvenient. It does not roll off the tongue well. Wajatta?
It's not as interesting as Wajatta.
No, it's not. I just want to call it Wajatta. Wajatta is the pairing of comedian and musician and everything else, just international man of mystery, Reggie Watts, as well as electronic musician, John Tejada.
Electronic musician?
Mm-hmm.
You have to like plug him to the wall?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a robot.
Ooh.
Wizard.
Yeah.
And Casual High Technology, like I said, is the debut project of them. It consists of a lot of production by John Tejada, as well as a lot of vocals and vocal loops by Reggie Watts, like a lot of a cappella beats made by himself.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen his TED Talk, you know exactly like what I'm talking about.
Have you ever seen his TED Talk? If you've ever seen any of his like stand-up specials, you essentially know what you're getting into in a weird sense. Very improvisational and very eccentric and very just like random. A lot of these things that he has to say on this record are complete gibberish. Like, lyrics really do not matter on this record. No. Even when he's actually saying like comprehensible statements or sentences, they don't mean anything.
No.
It's very rambly, very gibberish. Nothing really means anything in terms, at least lyrically, on this record, which I'm fine with, because if you ever seen any of his comedy specials, even when he's not doing music and he's just talking, he's essentially just gaslighting the crowd in a weird way of not like trying to be mean or trying to fight them, gaslighting type of way, but more of them just trying to get a laugh out of it, just constantly saying stuff until it becomes funny, where he just keeps on going and going until the joke is essentially dead, and that's when it becomes funny. Like, his weird style of comedy is one of the reasons I was really interested in going to this album, and I've always been interested in seeing him making like quote-unquote actual music, or more music that really wasn't based on his comedy specials, like an album that takes place out of his comedy. It could still be very humorful. I think this album's very actually humorous in a weird way of just how improvisational he is and how much he speaks in gibberish. I think I can find a lot of humor in that. But I think I wanted an album that kind of takes place out of that, because I think he's a very eccentric artist. And getting into this, I was really interested to hear of this pairing between the two and how it would mesh, because I was kind of nervous of Reggie Watts working with someone else, if they would be able to hold him back. But more or less, I think John Tejada more or less keeps Reggie Watts on ground, which is fine, because I think his job on this record is more or less to make simple production that contrasts Reggie's weird. Mm-hmm. It's more or less, he's supposed to be the normal one of the group, the one that just provides the drum loops or the synths that Reggie's supposed to be super eccentric over. His vocal loops are supposed to complement. And I think he does a good job of almost being, what's the term? He's more or less being the normal one of the group, which is good. Like, that's the role he plays out through the entire record, which is not a bad thing. Like, I think his production is very minimal at times on this record, or it's very basic, which I don't think is a bad thing, because when you're comparing yourself to Reggie Watts, who's a very eccentric artist, you kind of need something really basic.
Yeah. And
I'm not saying, like, I don't mean that, I mean that in like a huge compliment, because I think I feel like having two oddities in a group would have been such a clusterfuck.
They're gonna clash.
Yeah, and it's just like
happens all the
strange.
time.
Like, I think this is the right amount of weird production, because I think the production is weird not because John Tejada is providing weird production, but more or less Reggie Watts and his vocal loops are making the production quirky.
Yeah.
Which, if you had more diverse production, more eccentric, more experimental production underneath it, it would have just been too much. It would have been too crazy. And having this provides a national, or like a unity of just calmness and peacefulness, and you get to feel emotion. And not to say just because John Tejada's performance is basic on this record doesn't mean it isn't as impactful. There's a lot of moments with the synths I find very beautiful, regardless of whether Reggie Watts is on top of them or not, or regardless of anything. I really like some of his drum performances on here. Mm-hmm. I think are really cool. and they're not too spectacular, but I think they're really impactful. But the combination of these two forces is actually something really interesting, and I think they work well together as a unit. I think all I can say really bad about this record is that it's 52 minutes, I think, and it just 54 minutes, and it just doesn't need to be that length. I think I love Reggie Watts. I think he's a great artist, but I never really want to hear him do anything that length, because I think that length is more reserved for if you have earned it, or if you're making an art so captivating, so large, so huge that it can go outside the traditional length of an album around like the 40-minute mark. And what they're doing on here, it's good. I like it a lot. I think it's great, but I don't think it needs to go on for super long, near an hour like this album does. I think there's a lot of great moments on here, but there's some moments where just tracks go on for like 6 minutes, and I'm just kind of lost. And like, I enjoy bits and pieces. Like, there's not a track I truly hate on this record. I enjoy bits and pieces, whether it's Reggie performances or whether it's some of the background production or whether it's some of the vocal loops I think are really cool. I think in all these tracks, there's something I enjoy, but like some of these tracks just go on forever. Like Something About This Way, it's the last track on the album, and it's relatively short, but it's just not needed. It just repeats a lot of the same vocal loops and a lot of the same production, a lot of the same ideas, that it just feels like it was like a bonus track that didn't like really conclude the album well enough. Red vs. Blue is the longest track. It's just the production, this is the one track where I feel like the production was kind of lacking, because there was this kind of disconnect between him and Reggie.
It was way like sonically different than everything else on here, and I don't think that it worked as well for either of them. That's kind of, as I was talking about earlier, that's kind of the point where I was just like, okay, I have come down off of this high that was tracks 1 through 7, you know? Everything about the album, I was like, this is all really good. This is all very pleasant to listen to. And then I hit this point and I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know? I was about 2 minutes into Red and the Blue, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, this track is going on way too long. I don't like the production. Like, I just wanted it to end immediately, but
it's the longest track on the
somehow,
album.
some way, it ended up being the longest track on the album.
It's the longest track. It's the track that Reggie is speaking the most coherent sentences in, and there's some coherence of potentially a narrative. But and I will give Reggie's vocal performances, he's fantastic on this track. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing really captivating about it. It's already, there's stuff we've already heard, some performances from Reggie which I've already enjoyed, and some like production which is okay from Tejada, which is lackluster in this track in my opinion. It just doesn't work out. It's the longest track. It's way too normal retrospective to everything else, and it just didn't need to be there. And I think it would have been fine. This album would be fine. Another track makes some sense. I have this problem with it. Just goes on for way too long. Kind of repeats some of the same ideas. Needs some more progression.
Yeah.
There's just some moments on here where I think it's just like tracks just go on for longer than they need to.
I think in order to make something like this work, like a pairing like this work, you have to know your limits. And sometimes it doesn't seem like Wajatta knows their limits of how long they can make a track before the same vocal loops or the same type of production just gets to be a little tiring, or gets to be a little, I don't know, like...
annoying.
Yeah, annoying.
It's more
just overstays its welcome.
More or less, like, the best tracks on this album are the ones that range from, like, 3 to 4 minutes. And I think a cool thing that they could do in the future is even shortening that to, like 1 to 2 minutes, like it's just a bunch of short tracks.
Yeah, I think that would work out really well.
Like work with their like Reggie's improvisational like form of creating, I guess, and Tejada kind of backing him up. I think that would have been a cool way to like highlight the both of them.
Yeah,
but there's still like a bunch of great tracks on here. Like moments like We Know More Than We Lead On, such a breathtaking, like mountaintop-esque moment to start off the album. Very beautiful, very majestic. Reggie's voice is very high and mighty. I think it's really impactful too. Very beautiful. Wajatta bringing this kind of like simple, majestic production to back up Reggie, and it's a great pairing between the two. And I knew like after hearing that track, I'm like, okay, they mesh together as a unit. Slipping. Reggie's vocal loops are just killer on that. Just the constant progression of him on top of himself, I think, is incredible. Just this very like Ferris wheel like loop, which I think is great.
Yeah.
The Solution with is my favorite track, with Reggie's beatboxing over the like Tejada just provides a simple drum loop, and it fits. Like, that's all he needed to do on that track to match Reggie. And I think it's incredible that he like knew his limit to make something that would complement Reggie. He could have added like a synth or something, but no, it's just that basic drum loop to fill in the gaps of Reggie's beatboxing. I think is incredible. I truly enjoy Reggie Watts gibberish rapping at the end, where he's just it sounds like he's speaking some foreign language, but he's really just speaking nothing. Like,
he's not,
you can't pull the wolf. It doesn't mean anything. But I think it's really cool and prevents a lot of the character of Reggie. Running, I think, is also, it's very breathless. It's like Running would be a great track to actually like run to. It'd be a great track to like listen to at the gym. I think it would have been it's a cool, like one of those cool tracks like that constantly is progressing, constantly moving, and you constantly have to keep yourself up with it. Your motivation to keep on running may change and may decease, but the track keeps on moving and it gives you motivation to move forward, which I think is really cool. I think the synths and the vocal loops complement each other very well, and I think that's one of the tracks where it's like 6 minutes, but I don't feel it. I think
there are a lot of them in the first half of the album that I'm like, okay, I can I can get with these. They might be long, but that's okay.
Yeah,
because they do well and keep things interesting for the majority of the time anyway.
Yeah. And then Easel does it. It's a track near the end that I actually enjoy. It's a constant fight between space, just for like space between the instrumentation, the samples, and Reggie's vocals are all kind of competing.
They're fighting for the blank canvas.
Yeah, essentially, and all fighting to be heard. And it's this constant like sound war going on, which I think is really cool. Mm-hmm. It just creates this large wall of sound that's very pretty. In particular, it's one of the moments on like towards the tail end that actually really surprised me. And I think this album may be a little bit bloated at times, but at least with each track I'm seeing ideas that they want to be presented, and I'm feeling moments. At least I get something in each track. Either Tejada's synths or his drums really appeal to me, or Reggie's vocal loops, or his character appeals to me, or his singing appeals to me. Mm-hmm. I think each track has something that I want to listen to. Some tracks just don't work out as a whole. Red versus Blue, I think, is the best example of that. But overall, I found this to be a really enjoyable experience that just kind of went on for a little bit too long. And other than that, I don't think I have much complaint about. I think this is a very solid, well put together collaboration between two people that actually worked out and highlighted the best of both people, which I think is really cool. I'm feeling an 8 on this. I think this is really good. I enjoyed it. And I think other than trimming themselves down and knowing their limits, there's nothing really. They essentially figured out how to mesh with each other really well on this record, which is something I think is incredible. Because a lot of artists, when they try to collaborate, they don't figure out how to work with each other. In this one, they're catering to each other in a weird form.
Yeah. Overall, I think I'm going to give it a 7. I did actually really enjoy this as much as some other stuff this year. I guess instrumental wise, I don't think so. But also, I think for a first-time effort and a first-time really in any sort of collaboration similar to this, there's nothing out there that's really like Wajatta and like what they're doing here. So it's a first-time like effort for this kind of human voice sample drum machine kind of
weird
pairing
pop,
here. I think that it does some real good. I just think that sometimes this album
just doesn't
really burns me out towards the end, you know? Something about the way synchronized red and the blue makes some sense. You know, these tracks kind of wear on me a little bit, and it just makes the experience a little less enjoyable. Even sometimes towards the end of tracks, I'll just get like tired of them. In the same way that like you might be eating something and then just decide that you want to taste something different.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt during some of this. One last note, Let Me Come to Your Party, I thought was really funny.
Yeah,
it's really dumb, but it's really funny.
Let Me Come to Your Party is essentially just like the music that Reggie was making, and it's like like his comedy acts.
Yeah, I just think it's funny because they humor him for just a minute, let him do what he wants to do.
Yeah, I just think that's a really funny moment as well. But until next time, guys, I've been Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
And see ya, boyos.
Bye, everybody.